The trouble of the world that we live in now with the media is they always want to wreck anything that's good. Have you noticed? It doesn't matter how nice it can be, whether it should be celebratory, all that sort of stuff. Very quickly they decide to bring it down and make it look as well boring and dull as many of the publications that we have. And when you think about it, you kind of think, well, does anybody really want to read dull and boring stories? I'm sure we'll all agree, chums, we're all going through very difficult times. And what you want to have is uplifting stuff, whether that be music, movies, things to give you an escapism. I often think about this stoicism of people who went through the terrible times of, the great sort of 1930s, where they went through horrific times with no work, no money coming in, and of course the great crash, stuff like that. There's been many things through the decades where people have shown that they can get through difficult times. But this particular world we live in comes at you from all angles, on platforms, some might say, a little bit like this. But I wanted to share this story with you so that you know the truth about really what went on behind the scenes of a recent visit to His Majesty the King, King Charles III, and the President of the United States, President Trump. As ever, let me explain. Morning, nice to see you, chums. Thank you so much as ever for joining me today. Lovely to have your company. Nice view here. You see this beautiful building, beautiful terracotta style, over 100 years old now. No, not me. The building. But feel 100 some days, don't you? I know you wake up and think, what went wrong, And suddenly also, when it's the turn of the weather, do you find it, you sort of think, am I colder, am I not? And then you can't decide, and it just takes a lot longer, doesn't it? When it's sunny, you can just get outside or just get near a window and think, all's right with the world, it's sunny, and you don't have to worry about whether you need to bring a coat or indeed it's going to rain. Some people might say there's been rain showers on this particular recent visit of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. As you know, he had a second, and that is historical visit back here for a state visit. Sadly for him, he was unable to address Parliament. But as I told you in a previous video, probably a blessing, because by the time he'd learned the names of the people, they'd probably either been fired, axed, or, just simply removed. That's Keir's wish, right? But it's headlines like this that I wanted to show you, because this is in one of those tabloid newspapers that basically said, well, as you can see, that President Trump left the whole thing an absolute state while he was visiting inside Windsor Castle. Cans of hairspray, tanning wipes, boxes of pizzas, everything just stacked up, late night fast food deliveries, etc., etc. So what is the true story? Well, what's interesting is, and as many of you know, I have excellent contacts. And the bottom line was that, well, this might make a good headline, but it is a headline. The true story, what happened was, and this is from, as I say, a wonderful source, that when the President and the First Lady left, not only did they line up and meet many of the staff, in fact, most of the staff that had looked after them during their stay. But you may not know this, but Melania Trump is an absolute sort of clean freak, loves everything to be spick and span. And according to that excellent source, you could barely tell they'd been in. Virtually the bathroom was spotless, and everything was in its place. There were no sort of messy sheets or anything like that. Everything, as they said, was just nice. Not only that, I'm supposedly not going to be able to say, but apparently they were offered, gifts or tips, right? So yeah, I'm not really allowed to say that, but there you go, which is a very nice gesture. And a thing, of course, that Americans love to do and is very appreciated. I might point out, I can't say whether they were received or not. Regarding the stacked up pizza boxes and stuff like that, that is true, but that is in a room that was assigned to the big security detail that was looking after President Trump and the First Lady Melania. And they couldn't take them out all the time because two reasons really. They weren't allowed, they didn't know where they were going to go, but it was agreed with the staff and the personnel that all of that stuff just be left in that corner and it would be dealt with as soon as it was available, the sort of thing. So consequently, all of these stories which spin up and basically say this, this and this, well, none of it's really true, but as I often say here on the show, the problem that you have with the likes of, the mainstream media is they want to make a story out of something. And consequently, when you're attacking somebody like that, that's the, way to make it stick. But as for the visit with His Majesty the King, it was an excellent success. Everybody was happy, including the King, and there was no such thing going on behind the scenes. But then they wouldn't have a story, would they? I'm always happy to share. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.